Hello, my name is Daniela Ramirez, currently enrolled in EDUL 6320 Curriculum Leadership course at UTRGV. I will be training my staff on how to unpack a TEK. Let's get started. Hello, good morning everyone. Today we will learn and master how to unpack a TEK. You may already be familiarized with TEKs as we use them on our daily basis for instruction. Here's the agenda for today. This training will take about 30 minutes and we will learn how to effectively use TEKs to our advantage. Now, what are TEKs? The Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, also known as TEKs, are the state standards for what students should know and be able to do. You can find them on the TA website by simply Googling TEKs. These are also divided by chapters, which are basically by subject or by grade level. Before we start unpacking the TEK, it is empirical and it is also crucial to understand where our campus is at. Now, we will be viewing the scores for the STAR testing, specifically the 4th grade reading part of both 2018 and 2019. This will allow us to know where we stand at and how analyzing the data has allowed us to create a stronger campus improvement plan. Alrighty team, so here are the charts of both 4th grade reading STAR tests retrieved from fiscal years 2018 and 2019. The scores portray a slight improvement, based on the overall data. The campus meets performance rate went from 49% to 57%, despite the alternating factors, that included the cancellation of the spring 2020 STAR due to the pandemic. The current data is currently being assessed, in order to determine what areas of student mastery in TEKS, learning objectives, depth of knowledge, and thought process need to be reinforced to overall ensure that student achievement and critical thinking areas are being measured at all times. Thank you once again, teachers, for always working collaboratively and diligently, to help our campus be a better place for students to learn. Now, we've already stated our needs to improve student learning, and the pandemic is a big factor on that, but we've identified at least 3 academic needs that have led to our creation of the plan to meet the state standards. One of them is, the use of technology. The equipment and software will be purchased to assist the teachers with curriculum instruction and overall enhanced lessons taking place in the classroom. Another instructional need that we've identified is the components of the balanced literacy framework and small group reading instructions that are not currently implemented with fidelity. The campus lacks time management skills as well, and we want to use the appropriate resources to meet the instructional needs of diverse learners. So, yeah, thank you once again, because the teachers we see an improvement on that. And we just want to address the different needs by closely monitoring student progress through campus assessments in every grade level, on the student progress through the STAR content, instructional alignment, horizontal and vertical alignment, benchmark results use, and assessment of supplemental resources, which of course focus on the TEKS and STAR standards. When unpacking a TEK, we need to be careful in identifying the verbs. What actions do students need to perform? We also need to identify the concept. What is the main point of your lesson plan? Of course, based on the TEKS. The context also gives me the parameters, which are the details specific to any lesson plan. Alrighty teachers, so now that we've understood the 3 main components of how to unpack a TEK, we are going to go together over an example of a 4th grade English Language Arts and Reading TEKS. So in front of you, you have a folder with an example that it says on the top, English Language Arts and Reading, grade 4, adopted 2017. please pull that out, and we're going to circle all the verbs that we see. And so I'm going to read, and please follow along. And remember, we're circling this part, and I have a green pen, so I'm going to circle in green to differentiate at the end. So first, it says, number 3, developing and sustaining foundational language skills. It gives me examples such as listening, speaking, reading, writing, and thinking vocabulary. The student uses newly acquired vocabulary expressively. And then it continues by giving me more examples. So I see a verb right here right away, which is the word uses. And remember, we're circling it. If you have a green pen, a different pen, or a pencil, that's fine. We're circling right now the verbs. So we know that the verbs, are the actions that students need to perform. And, by identifying this, it will allow us to know better, what we need to do and how to effectively use the TEKS. So we see that uses right here is the main verb. Now it gives me more examples. It says A, use print or digital resources to determine meaning, syllabication, and pronunciation. I also see the word use here, which is a verb, and then it gives me more examples. Then for B, I also see the word use. It says use context with and beyond a sentence to determine the relevant meaning of unfamiliar words or multiple meaning words. Then we're jumping to C. As of right now, do we have any questions? If anyone sees a verb, please at any time stop me so we can go over that in case I missed it. Alrighty, so for C, determine the meaning of and use the words with affixes such as miss, sub, meant, and ity/ty, and roots such as autograph and meter. So right here I see the word determine. That's our verb. We want students to determine, of course, the meaning of different affixes. And then lastly but not least, D, identify, use, and explain the meaning of homophones such as rain and rain. So I see right here 3, and I'm going to circle identify, use, and explain. So once again, these are the verbs that this specific TEKS is telling us to do. And remember that the verbs tell us like the actions that the student need to perform. Alrighty, so we've already circled the verbs, which again are the actions the students need to perform. We're now going to underline the concept. What is the main point of the TEKS? This is going to help us, develop a strong lesson plan. So usually the concept is followed after the verb. So we've already identified for A, which the verb is use print or digital resources to determine meaning, syllabication, and pronunciation. Now the concept for this would be print or digital resources. That's what students are going to be using. So I'm going to underline that. I'm going to use a pink pen for that because that's what I have. You guys can continue using the same pen that you were using, just that we're now underlining. And that's going to differ from the verb which we circled. So for A, the concept will be print or digital resources. Now for B, the verb again will be use, but what are students using? That's the context within and beyond a sentence to determine the relevant meaning of unfamiliar words or multiple meaning words. So the concept for this would be context within and beyond a sentence. That's what students are going to do, and I'm going to underline it again with pink. Now jumping to C. It says determine the meaning of fan and use words with affixes such as, and gives us an example. The concept for this one, again, underlining in pink, the meaning of and use of words with affixes. So that's the concept. Then it gives us the details, right? It gives us examples. Now D, we said that the verbs were identify, use, and explain. It's a little bit more specific. And the concept for this one is the meaning of homophones. And then again, it gives us more examples, and the examples is the context, like what specific examples, what context, and we're going to go over that in a little bit. Now that we've underlined everything in pink, we are going to Now go on the concept. Now, concept are the details specific to any lesson. So again, the examples that the TEKS is giving us. So for A, we already know that uses the verb and the printer digital resources are the concept. Now the context, it's like to determine the meaning, the syllabication and pronunciation. And usually it's going to be right after the concept. The TEKS are pretty easy to understand, if that makes sense. But of course, we want to, get to master them and really understand what it's telling us, how to make our lesson plans be stronger, how to, align them correctly to the Texas standards. Alrighty, teachers, we've already reached mid-workshop. It is time for you guys to use the restroom facilities. If you need to stand up and stretch, I'm going to put the timer for 3 minutes, and once we come back, we will continue. Alrighty, teachers, I hope that the 3 minutes that we provided for you to stretch, to drink, to have a bite, to go to the restroom were useful. We are now going to continue unpacking the TEKS. We stayed off at the English language arts and reading example, and we're going to continue using the same TEKS for example. Now, we've already identified the verb, the concept, and the context. We either circle the verb, we underline the concept, and we boxed the context. So now we are going to analyze more closely the statement and overall student expectation. So again, for example, we're using TEKS number 3, which the knowledge and skills statement state, that students need to be developing and sustaining foundational language skills, such as learning, speaking, reading, writing, and thinking vocabulary. And you want the students to use the newly acquired vocab expressively. And then now the student expectation tell us how they're going to use the vocabulary expressively, whether it be written, whether it be verbal, whether it be, reading it. Now it says use print for A, use print or digital resources to determine meaning, syllabication, and pronunciation. Now we've already gone through the hybrid learning phase, and of course the completely virtual, the online schooling. And I hope that this allowed teachers and benefit them to understand and master overall how to incorporate technology onto their daily lesson plans. How to use it on their side to help students learn, whether it be gamification, whether it be just daily activities, how students enjoy and learn better through the use of technology. Anyways, so going back to the student expectations. So A says use printer digital resources to determine meaning, syllabication, and pronunciation. Now, how are students going to, how are we going to model as teachers the pronunciation for different vocabulary? Even if we're virtual, and you think that maybe students are by this age, specifically fourth grade, already know the language. It may not be the case. It may be the case that because we're so south of Texas, borderlands, we have a lot of students who may come from Mexico and they don't speak language. They're not fluent. They're barely getting enrolled in the school in the United States. So, just considering all that will allow us to help the student better. Now, another example I want to give is for D. It says identify, use, and explain the meaning of homophones such as rain and rain. Rain and rain. It may sound the same to them, especially if they've never heard these two words or they've never, thought about homophones overall. And how are we going to help students understand words that we use in our daily lives, such as there, and there? That even if I say them because I have a strong accent, they may sound the same, but of course we know that they're different. How are students going to identify? How are they going to use them and, explain the meaning of each of them? For example, I'm not going to say to express they are there at home. I'm not going to use THEIR. I'm going to use THEY''RE at home because they are at home. Students need to understand how to use them properly, and these student expectations make it easier for us teachers to understand what we need to teach, how we need to teach, and of course, teachers have the last say on how to develop their lesson plans, what examples to give, based on student participation. How are they, reacting to certain information? Are they grasping the knowledge, and just continuing? And this is the fun part that teachers get, the experience of knowing and, how to develop examples from there. But yes, do we have any questions so on? So as of right now. Alrighty, teachers, we've already gone over an example of how to unpack a TEK. It is now your turn to demonstrate what you've learned. Each of you in your folder has a different example of the different TEKs pertaining specifically to the 4th grade English Language Arts. I'm going to be walking around as you guys complete those. I want to see the verbs, the concept, and the context. Remember, we're circling the verbs, we're underlining the concept, and we are boxing the context. Remember the verb. What actions do the student need to perform? The concept, what is the main point? And the context, the details specific to any lesson. So those will be stayed up on the projector for you guys to, read it in case you need anything. Raise your hands if you have any questions. As I said, I will be walking around, and then at the end, we will go over the different examples that you guys have. Alrighty, as I mentioned, I will be going around to check how you guys are doing. If you have any questions, please let me know. All we have to do is circle the verbs, underline the concept, and box the context, just as we did in the example. I think about 5 minutes should be enough. Each of you has a different example, as I mentioned. You guys can help each other if you need to. And let me know once again if you have any questions. Alrighty, teachers, the 5 minutes have already passed. And we're going to use an example right here of another TEKS. Again, it's all about the 4th graders, the English Language Arts. And the TEKS presented right here is TEKS number 6. And I'm going to read it. It says comprehension skills, and you may follow along if you have this one. Otherwise, you can check on the projector. Listening, speaking, reading, writing, and thinking using multiple texts. So, they're at this point, they're already being, presented a variety of different texts, whether it be poems, essays, whatever it is. The student uses metacognitive skills to both develop and deepen comprehension of increasingly complex texts. Now, it says, and it's very clear, it says the student is expected to, and then the student expectations are listed A through I. So it may seem like a lot, but it's something that you are not going to present in just one day. So I'm going to read A. It says establish purpose for reading assigned and self-selected text. Now, when it comes for the teachers to create the objectives for the lesson plans, the student, may not understand what establish means, but you may use a synonym. So, or even use it as an I, like I will learn instead of the student will learn, and this will allow, the student to have ownership of the lesson plan. They know that, they're expected to do that, and they, are encouraged and that they can actually learn, that they, have the knowledge, to do so. Now, B, generate questions about text before, during, and after reading to deepen, understand, and gain information. So now, how are students going to generate these questions? It's all about the teacher, activating prior knowledge, asking questions for them to ask. Like, the student may not know, they're not going to be born asking questions. Many of the time, they're just active listening, but, they don't engage in a conversation. C, create mental images to deepen understanding. So again, it's the teacher's job. Sometimes we don't provide visuals, but questionings, bringing up what they already know, their interests, allow them to make connections, create mental images. E, make connections to personal experiences, ideas, and other texts in society as well, what they're reading, making sure that, they can relate to in real life. F, making inferences and use evidence to support understanding. G, evaluate details read to determine key ideas. H, synthesize information to create new understanding. And I, monitor comprehension and make adjustments, such as rereading, using background knowledge, asking questions, and annotating when understanding breakdown. So, students, the teacher can guide the students into making inferences, making annotations in certain readings and texts. But now we're going to circle the verbs of each. And, going back to A, establish, establishing is the verb. For B will be generate. We want students to generate the questions, again, to deepen the understanding, gain information overall. For C, we want them to make and correct or confirm predictions. So there's two verbs. First is make, and the second one is either correct or confirm, whatever the case is. For D, it would be create mental images. So again, the verb right here is create. For E is make connections. We want students to be able to make connections. F, again, make inferences and use evidence. G, evaluate details. So students are to, evaluate. That's the verb right there. And H, synthesize information. So now, it may be words that the students may not understand, but you can use always the internet on your side, using for synonyms for your classroom objective, understanding in reality what it means to synthesize, right? And as a matter of fact, I'm actually going to Google right here on the Google Merriam-Webster, what does synthesize mean? And let's check. Using technology is very good. You can even have the students help you if you have dictionaries in the classroom. So it says synthesize, to combine or produce a synthesis, to make a synthesis of, to produce. So we're going to go to the root word, which is synthesis. It's loading. Why is it not loading? Alrighty, I may have internet connection. Let's Google synthesis. Combination of ideas to form a theory or a system. So, just combining ideas to summarize, what the students are learning. Again, we want to make inferences, we want to evaluate ideas, we want them to synthesize what they learn to create new understanding. And so I hope, if you got this example, that what we circled together, is also circled in your paper. If not, it's totally okay. We're here to learn. And again, we usually are acquainted. Alrighty, team. So we've already learned how to unpack a TEKS. How to analyze the verbs that it has, the concepts, the context that we need, to effectively use them and align our instruction to the state standards. We are going to go back to where we started, which was analyzing the data and why this workshop is very important. So because of the pandemic, our scores, of course, have, there are unprecedented times that we don't have control of much of things. So earlier I mentioned 3 of the top priorities that we have, one of them being parental involvement. We want students, to feel the support of their parents. That will help them overall, succeed academically. Now, we need to create a curriculum, of course, that aligns to the grade level standards, and that is very essential. Now, this elementary, of course, conducts periodic evaluation of campus performance to create strong curriculum to meet all needs of the diverse students, including English language learners. Now, these are essential as, of course, social forces are constantly changing, and therefore, as Parquet mentions, educational programs should also change with them as well. Now, because of there are many factors that affect education, more specifically student learning, we need to follow and modify their curriculum based on assessment data. We have reached to the end of today's workshop. I hope that these type of professional development workshops are helpful for teachers, for you all to really understand what the TEKS entail, how to align them to your lesson plans when creating them, the objectives as well, and why we need to do so based on the assessment, the end of the year or the STAR assessments, to have our students meet and masters what continue with the good work that we have until today. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to me. I will send the recording of today's workshop to everyone's email, and just a recap of what we learned. You in your folders, you can take all the information provided. It has the agenda of today, and so you may have written the examples that we went on and stuff like that. So once again, thank you everyone for joining me. I hope to see you in the next time.